And so you might ask me, Pastor King, yesterday on the broadcast, you said that Jesus forgave those disciples for fleeing, for Peter denying. And it says, what would you base that upon? Well, I base it upon Scripture. Because if you read the dialogues that took place, there was forgiveness granted. Even in John's gospel, John tells us about Thomas. And it tells us how that when Jesus appeared to the disciples in that room, that Thomas was berated by Jesus, because in a previous time when Thomas was not in the room, he had said, "No, I don't believe it." He said, "I don't believe it." He said, I won't believe it unless I touch the scars in his hand and put my hand in his side." He said, "I'm not going to believe it." And so when Jesus reappeared a few days later, he confronted Andrew. And he told him, he says, "Blessed is that person who believes when they have not even seen." But yet the message is very clear that he forgave him. And he forgave all the disciples. And then you take the time down by the seashore when Peter had said, "I go fishing." I don't know how you would interpret that. He could possibly have been saying, "Hey, I'm going back to doing what I used to do." But nevertheless, that's what they were doing when Jesus found them. And Jesus was up on the shore, and he had cooked some fish and had a little fire going. And when they realized who it was, of course, he had told them, he said, "Children, have you any meat?" In other words, have you been catching anything? And they said, "No, we've toiled all night." He says, "Cast your nets on the right-hand side of the ship." And when they did, they got so many fish, the ship was about to sink. And that's when they realized it was Jesus. And some of them jumped out of the boat and swam to him. And we have that beautiful dialogue that took place between Jesus and Peter, which he said, "Simon, son of Jonas, lovest thou me more than these?" And three times that exchange took place. Every time it took on a deeper meaning. And finally, the third time, I think Jesus hit the target. And said Peter began to weep. And Jesus, now this is the way I see this. Jesus called him back to the ministry and said, "Go feed my lambs." Now, that's forgiveness, folks. That's forgiveness and restoration. He not only forgave Peter, he restored him back to the ministry. You see, that's the love of Jesus. I mean, let's think about it here. I mean, he hung on the cross that they had cruelly put him on. And what did he say? He said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." As he just looked out over humanity, he says, "Father, forgive them." The great love and the great mercy of God, that he would even forgive these people who had rejected him at the very, very end when he needed them the most. They weren't there for him, but he loved them and he forgave them. It's Pastor Jack King with the gospel on the radio broadcast.